So I would like to introduce our speaker for the first session of the day on narrating benevolence and Amazon propaganda, Dr. Maha Hilal. Dr. Maha Hilal is a researcher and writer on institutionalized Islamophobia and author of the book Innocent Until Proven Muslim, Islamophobia, the War on Terror, and the Muslim Experience Since 9/11. Her writings have appeared in Vox, Al Jazeera, Middle East Eye, Newsweek, Business Insider, Truth Out, and Vox, among others. She's co-founder of the Justice for Muslims Collective and was previously the inaugural Michael Ratner Middle East Fellow at the Institute for Policy Studies in Washington, D.C. Dr. Hilal is also an organizer with Witness Against Torture and a council member of the School of the Americas Watch. She earned her doctorate in May 2014 from the Department of Justice, Law, and Society at American University in DC. And she received her master's degree in counseling and her bachelor's degree in sociology from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. With that, Dr. Hilal, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. Thank you so much, Kaiser, for the introduction, and thank you all for being here so early. I know it's actually 9:40. Where I am, it's 8:40. So I know it's a bit early, and to be learning about Amazon and corporate corruption is not the most exciting thing on a Sunday morning, but here we are, ready to learn about how we can push back and collectively challenge Amazon. So as Kaiser noted, I will be talking about narratives that Amazon uses to, make itself seem like it's a, good/benign company that is doing good for the world, that treats its workers' rights, that cares about the conditions of their warehouses, right? That is a company that, started sort of from the ground up, that, Jeff Bezos kind of pulled himself up by the bootstraps, and all these other messages. And so, I usually study narratives in a different context, which is in the context of national security, Islamophobia, and the war on terror. And the reason why I think they're so important is because, whoever shapes the narrative is the one who gets to shape how people view and see the world. And whoever has the power to control the narratives has the power to kind of control how people view different issues and how they perceive reality. And for those of us who are familiar with the abuses that Amazon engages in and inflicts onto others, we can see past a lot of the propaganda vis-a-vis their commercials and, written materials and things like that. But for others who view Amazon as, a retail service that gets them their products and things that they need within 2 days, I imagine that these messages are very effective in convincing them that, Amazon is indeed a benign corporation. So what we're going to do in this presentation, it will be, pretty interactive. So definitely want to get people's thoughts, and with the sort of the frame of mind of, how do we get ahead of the narrative? Because a lot of times, because we simply just don't have enough capacity and power, we're often in the position of responding to narratives. And so the question is, given the amount of money and access Amazon has to shaping the mainstream narrative, how do we then get ahead of it? And how do we work to challenge some of the problematic ideas that Amazon puts out on the daily? So with that, I'm going to ask Chris to show the presentation that I've put together.
Friend, can you make me co-host one more time?
Oh, sure. So we're gonna watch a series of videos, and we'll just kind of stop for discussion after each video. The first one is from the House Judiciary hearing on big tech's dominance and treatment of competitors. And this is Jeff Bezos' opening statement. that we're going to start with.
Thank you, Chairman Cicilline, Ranking Member Sensenbrenner, and members of the subcommittee. I was born into great wealth, not monetary wealth, but instead the wealth of a loving family, a family that fostered my curiosity and encouraged me to dream big. My mom, Jackie, had me when she was a 17-year-old high school student in Albuquerque. Being pregnant in high school was not popular. The school tried to kick her out, but she was allowed to finish after my grandfather negotiated terms with the principal. She couldn't have a locker, no extracurriculars, and couldn't walk across the stage to get her diploma. She graduated and was determined to continue her education, so she enrolled in night school, bringing me, her infant son, to class with her throughout. My dad's name is Miguel. He adopted me when I was 4. He was 16 when he came to the U.S. from Cuba by himself shortly after Castro took over. My dad didn't speak English, and he did not have an easy path. What he did have was grit and determination. He received a scholarship to college in Albuquerque, which is where he met my mom. Together with my grandparents, these hardworking, resourceful, and loving people made me who I am. I walked away from a steady job on Wall Street into a Seattle garage to found Amazon, fully understanding that it might not work. It feels like just yesterday I was driving the packages to the post office myself, dreaming that one day we might afford a forklift. Customer obsession has driven our success, and I take it as an article of faith that customers notice when you do the right thing. You earn trust slowly over time by doing hard things well, delivering on time, offering everyday low prices, making promises and keeping them, and making principled decisions, even when they are unpopular. And our approach is working. 80% of Americans have a favorable impression of Amazon overall. Who do Americans trust more than Amazon to do the right thing? Only their doctors and the military. The retail market we participate in is extraordinarily large and competitive. Amazon accounts for less than 1% of the $25 trillion global retail market and less than 4% of US retail. There's room in retail for multiple winners. We compete against large, established players like Target, Costco, Kroger, and of course, Walmart, a company more than twice Amazon's size. 20 years ago, we made the decision to invite other sellers to sell in our store to share the same valuable real estate we spent billions to build, market, and maintain. We believe that combining the strengths of Amazon's store with the vast selection of products offered by third parties would be a better experience for customers, and that the growing pie of revenue and profits would be big enough for all. We were betting that it was not a zero-sum game. Fortunately, we were right. There are now 1.7 million small and medium-sized businesses selling on Amazon. The trust customers put in us every day has allowed Amazon to create more jobs in the United States over the past decade than any other company. Hundreds of thousands of jobs across 42 states. Amazon employees make a minimum of $15 an hour, more than double the federal minimum wage. And we offer the best benefits that include comprehensive health insurance, 401k retirement, and parental leave, which includes 20 weeks of paid maternity leave. More than any place on earth, entrepreneurial companies start, grow, and thrive here in the U.S. We nurture entrepreneurs and startups with stable rule of law, the finest university system in the world, the freedom of democracy, and a deeply accepted culture of risk-taking. Of course, this great nation of ours is far from perfect. Even as we remember Congressman John Lewis and honor his legacy, we're in the middle of a much-needed race reckoning. We also face the challenges of climate change and income inequality, and we're stumbling through the crisis of a global pandemic. Still, with all of our faults and problems, the rest of the world would love even the tiniest sip of the elixir we have here in the U.S. Immigrants like my dad see what a treasure this country is. They have perspective and often can see it even more clearly than those of us who were lucky enough to be born here. It is still day one for this country, and even in the face of today's humbling challenges, I have never been more optimistic about our future.
that was a very evasive starting testimony, right? A beginning to his statement. Please feel free to type in the chat what your thoughts are. I'm going to highlight a couple of things, right? One is the story of adoption, right? His dad came from Cuba, and obviously we know what the dominant narrative about Cuba is in this country, right? It's a horrible, terrible communist country, and anyone who makes it to the US should be lucky. Of course, there were keywords like hardworking and resourceful to cue up the idea of pulling yourself up by the bootstrap, right? Like he had no privileges to get him to where he is now. That he started in a Seattle garage when we know I believe he got $300,000 as a starting gift from his parents to build Amazon. And the thing, that I kept thinking about is when he said customers trust us to do the right thing. And it was a little confusing because what exactly was he referring to? What would be the right thing? What was the reference point? Also, the implication that people in the United States only purchase from corporations that, quote, do the right thing, right? And that the fact that they purchase whatever it is that they purchase is because the company that they're purchasing it from does the right thing. When in fact, you can expose people to a lot of information about how terrible a corporation is, and they will still continue to purchase from that platform because we don't have much a sense of community or empathy. And when he talked about competition, right, which was, of course, the entire point of the hearing in which he's speaking at, he talked about how there's sort of this room for everyone, right? And so, if you're a casual observer, happen to be listening to his statement, right, you might believe that that's the case. However, we know how far Amazon goes, right, to choke out any competitors. And if it's true that this sort of space, undefined, we don't know how big this space is really, right, is big enough for all, right? Why is Amazon using the tactics that they do of pushing companies out, of stealing companies and individuals, entrepreneurs' designs? Why would they be doing that if there's room for everyone? Now, interestingly, right, I'm sure you all, had to stop yourself from having really strong reactions to Jeff Bezos talking about, as it noted, American exceptionalism, that this country needs a race reckoning, that we have to deal with climate change and income inequality, right? Obviously, he assumed that those kind of keywords would be enough to sort of acquiesce his audience. But of course, those of us, in this training know, right, everything he's talking about are problems that he's contributing to, right? And so, it was a very, very problematic narrative. And the fact, again, that it's in the context of this hearing, which is about big tech dominance and the treatment of competitors, yet he took it as an opportunity to tell his story in terms that would make his work and his corporation, right, seem a lot less problematic than it really is the power of propaganda. And when he said, finally, right, $15 an hour, that's double the federal minimum wage, that's not an accomplishment, right? We know the federal minimum wage is garbage and is not feasible or sustainable for anyone who actually receives that small of an amount. So I think this was sort of a good entry point into the stories that Jeff Bezos is telling about himself and the corporation that he built. And I see some of the comments about, the immigrant experience, right? American exceptionalism, right? Silicon Valley corporate buzzword, yep. So all of these things, right? And again, this unfortunately is a story that many people believe, right? When they think about Amazon, what kind of company is Amazon? Jeff Bezos attempted to sell that story in a 5-minute statement. So let's move on to the next video. And the rest are
we at the Birmingham
benefits, flexible schedules, and paid tuition. Check it out.
Okay, who's this? Does anyone know? Right. Now, does Terry Crews work at Amazon? No. Well, if he is working at Old Spice, I don't think he's making commercials for them. I think he only makes commercials for people, for companies that he doesn't work at. So Terry Crews here comes along and is making a commercial about how great it is to work at Amazon. And how disingenuous is that someone, again, who does not work there is the one telling people and essentially tricking people, right, into potentially applying and then working for Amazon, where they will soon find out that none of these things are true or are only true in a very limited sense. So this is another way that Amazon is using propaganda, right? And even when they do have real employees in their videos, as you'll see, of course, you can only imagine that there is some sort of coercion involved, right? That they are not necessarily speaking freely. But nevertheless, here's one way to show everyone that it's such a great place to work that even Terry Crews, and not that I know much about his politics or his ideological stances on things, but even he feels comfortable endorsing Amazon. Okay, let's go to the next one.
We at the Birmingham team have a great leadership. We really don't need anyone coming in and telling us what they want to give us, because basically we have everything we need here. Always wanted to work for Amazon. This is the only place I've seen that have benefits from day one. There's no waiting period. You got chances to advance.
Vote no for the union?
I would vote no.
It's not needed.
Vote no, we can do it without the dues.
Okay, so these videos, there's a series. They were on Twitch, I believe, and the Twitch platform got a lot of backlash for them. And obviously you can see why they're very problematic. And of course, the commercial is meant to say, right, that paying dues is much more expensive, right, than just living with what Amazon already has, because Amazon already has everything that the union is working for, which is of course not true. Otherwise, why would the union need to exist? And why would the union, right, be pushing the changes that they were pushing for if they were already in place? I mean, of course, there is the power of collective organizing and just in general having a union for safety and security. But in this particular case, right, they're talking about, you know, a union that's being formed in real time, right? At least they were trying to form one in real time when these series of ads came out. And so, you know, obviously it's very problematic to say that we don't need to pay, right? This is not going to help us. And the woman who's speaking is kind of, you know, in that video, she has some, it seems like she has a sense of sort of some indignation, like she's really upset about this. Like, how dare this union come and tell me what we need to do? So, of course, Amazon is extremely anti-union. And so this, you know, this particular message serves a very explicit purpose, right? So feel free to type any comments in the chat. I'm not sure if folks had seen these ads before. But needless to say, even if such explicit messages aren't used in future Amazon propaganda when it comes to the establishment of unions, they will undoubtedly, right, find ways to penetrate the dominant discourse and narrative with anti-union messaging, particularly among the employees, right? Yeah, it is really disgusting. Okay, let's go to the next slide.
Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
Amazon has transformed its operations in response to COVID-19 to protect employees and keep packages flowing.
Amazon has transformed its operations in response to COVID-19 to protect employees and keep packages flowing.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy while still delivering those packages to your doorstep.
The company is keeping employees safe and healthy.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy. The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy.
It spent $800 million on increased wages and overtime pay during the pandemic.
It has spent $800 million on increased wages and overtime pay during the pandemic.
It has spent $800 million on increased wages and overtime pay during the pandemic.
It has spent $800 million on increased wages and overtime pay during the pandemic.
Amazon says it has spent $800 million on increased wages and overtime pay during the pandemic.
Every single one of Amazon's workforce of nearly 1 million people has played a critical role in making these changes happen.
I hope that they feel that passion that we have for safety,
so they can stay safe and healthy while you do too.
Okay, what did you all notice about this video? About what different folks were saying in the video? Right, literally the exact same thing. So essentially what happened is that Amazon was feeding these talking points and the video footage and their messaging to local TV news stations. And uncoincidentally, this was being aired prior to their annual shareholder meeting, where they had anticipated criticism over the way that they had handled COVID. So, you know, obviously there's a number of issues here. One, that the local news channels acquiesced to Amazon's messaging, right? So that's one problem. Another is the emphasis on $800 million, right? $800 million is nothing, considering how much money Jeff Bezos and Amazon have, right? These are multi-billion dollar, this is a multi-billion dollar company. So what is 800 million to get safety and security for Amazon's employees? Furthermore, we actually, if you were here yesterday, if you were at the Institute yesterday, we talked about a particular case of a woman named Pashawn Brown who was made to conduct COVID testing for her colleagues. And she did not have, nor was given, the appropriate protective equipment and ended up dying suddenly one day after she made breakfast for her daughter, went to sleep, she died suddenly. And Amazon showed complete disregard for her case. And it was, you know, pretty clearly the case that Pashawn Brown, who was her name, probably died, right, of COVID. And Obviously, she was working on Amazon without protective gear because they did not value her life enough to give her that. There are many stories of employees at Amazon getting sick, dying, being injured. Whether or not it's the COVID pandemic, Amazon clearly does not care about their employees. And the truth of the matter is, right, that you wouldn't have to utilize propaganda if what you were saying was actually true. If it was the case that Amazon was keeping its employees safe, then their employees would say that Amazon was keeping us safe. And that has not been the case. Chris, can you go to the next slide?
My name is Christine Payne. I'm an associate here at Amazon. Come on, Christian, step into the blue line. Good. Stay safe, man. This device is giving us an accurate temperature check. You're good to go? Have a good day. The safety of Amazon community is very important. You're good to go, sir. Thank you. If I can take care of everyone who's sick out there, I would do it in a heartbeat. Step into the blue line, sir. I have to take care of my coworkers. That's how I am. This is my passion. Have a good day. I have a son who's 10 years old. I said, you know, mommy loves to help people. And he said, wow, one day I'm going to be like you too. I'm going to be a doctor. You make me cry now. Have a good day out there, okay?
Okay, so this is a doubly loaded message. One, because it's, peddling the same idea that Amazon keeps its employees safe. But two, that the onus or sort of the burden of keeping employees safe falls to other employees. And in this case, right. In this case, as Diana noted, right, it's a woman of color who's taking care of everyone else. And so the message is that, yes, we're doing our part, but also employees need to do their part. And this is about a community. So this is also, right, very problematic, because then where does the burden or the onus fall if someone was to contract COVID on the job? Was it the woman's fault for not detecting that this person had COVID, or was it Amazon's fault for not having the appropriate gear and protocols in place? And of course, Amazon shifting blame onto its employees or basically anyone else is obviously nothing new. Let's go to the next one. Before I say anything about this, what are your all thoughts on this video? I mean, across the board, they're trying to, of course, paint this idea of this multicultural, multiracial, multi-ethnic, inclusive space for people with disabilities, right? Yep. This idea that Amazon is a place that values family, children, even though, right, that they're very benevolent. But the family and children part is always somewhat disconnected, right, from Amazon. They're just using it to insinuate that there's a connection, right, between working at Amazon and how these people happen to be caring people who love their families. And the idea that Amazon, of course, since they love their families and they want to help their families, and they're also working at Amazon, Amazon must be giving them the resources to do that. Right. As Chris says, never mind how many employees are disabled, maimed, or killed by Amazon. Right. It's very hard, difficult to imagine that Amazon actually has facilities or cares about individuals who work for Amazon that are disabled. So I think that you can kind of see, you know, I'm sure you're seeing sort of the trajectory. This is sort of a wide range. And I wanted to kind of paint a picture in terms of this bigger picture of what the story of Amazon is, right? At least the story that they're trying to sell the American public. And it's very depressing, right? Because people want to feel good about the company from which they are buying things. And Amazon has so much money to tell these stories for us to believe them. And even when, as we've seen in past cases, where Amazon workers have protested, have held some sort of action to challenge the corporation's abuse, to challenge the lack of protective equipment, any sort of reasonable COVID protocols, Amazon responds with a storm of berating that worker or workers. So they are taking up so much space in the narrative to tell this story. And I think we have one more video, and then we can kind of think about, you know, how do we get ahead of this narrative?
My name is Preet Wadi. I'm the Director of Operations for our Baltimore City Fulfillment Center. We receive and ship several 100,000 orders for Amazon customers and Amazon business customers every single day. This fulfillment center is also known as Amazon Robotics Site, which means we work very closely with a lot of robotics technology and our associates to fulfill our Amazon business and Amazon customer needs. We have, in fact, created new categories of jobs that never existed before, jobs such as Amazon robotics technicians. Amazon fulfillment centers like this one are very involved with community. Most of our workforce is local, so we hire local. We employ over 3,000 full-time Amazon associates. We work very closely with over 41,000 small businesses in the state of Maryland. Businesses selling on Amazon Business can leverage our world-class logistics network and our state-of-the-art fulfillment technology. We serve a lot of customers, primarily in the Baltimore, Maryland, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. Areas. We are incredibly proud to be part of the Baltimore community and support and serve local organizations. We help Baltimore businesses buy from other Baltimore businesses.
Actually, Chris, can you just go to the last slide and then we'll just discuss them both together? So this is not a video, as you can see, but just two other narratives that Amazon was sort of peddling, both, you know, responding to a particular political moment. One is Jeff Bezos saying that he did not support the Muslim ban, and the other right saying that Amazon stands in solidarity with the Black community. Usually we talk about corporations as prioritizing profit over people. But in these two messages, you might get the impression that it's people over profit. But with the Muslim ban, why presumably might Jeff Bezos care about the Muslim ban? Does he actually care about the people that would be impacted by the ban simply for humanitarian reasons? And similarly with Black Lives Matter, if he was so concerned about Black members of the community, would they be treated with disregard and disdain, as they often are, working at Amazon? So what do these two political messages mean? And who are they for? Who is the audience for these two messages? Is it actually the communities that are being directly impacted? Or is it an audience that wants to feel better about their purchases or their engagement with Amazon? And an easy way to convince them to feel good is for Amazon to put out their alignment and values of equity, equality, racial justice, religious freedom, etc. So Chris, can you stop sharing the screen? Thank you so much, Chris. So the video that we saw, the final video, right, was about how Amazon is, part of the local community, right? And for those of us in the DMV, we haven't exactly found that to be the case, or at least not in the way that they're talking about being part of the community. Of course, Amazon has donated significant amounts of money. I mean, significant for the people that they're being donated to, not significant in terms of how much money Amazon and Jeff Bezos have. But that seems to be their strategy, right? Is to give people, communities, lots of money in terms of being able to whitewash their destruction and influence in the region. So in the DMV, Amazon gave numerous foundations sums of money that were pretty pathetic. If again, it's comparative, right? It's relative to how much money they have. Basically to say that we're part of your community and we're not here to cause any harm or damage. And this is how we're going to sort of pay it forward. And for foundations, individuals, whoever is receiving this money, thinking that it's a significant gift, it might be for them, depending on their budget. But again, right, it does not compare to what is an unquantifiable amount in its beginnings to how much damage and destruction Amazon will cause. So I'm hoping that, you all got a sense of the narratives. I'm sure, given that I know some of you in this group, that none of this was entirely surprising. But I think it's just about piecing this together and really getting this broader concept and idea of what the picture of Amazon really is. What is the picture that's being told, the story that's being told, right? That Amazon is such a benevolent company. So how do we get ahead of that? What are you all's thoughts on this? And I know we're closing. We're close to the end, or actually we're a little bit over. Yeah. Yeah. So again, you know, I focus very heavily on narrative in my work, because once you have the power to define the terms on which the story is told, you have the power to inflict the violence and harm. And of course, again, my reference point is usually state violence. But Amazon, right, is becoming an equally destructive force. Right. So we can talk about the disparities, as Chris notes, right, against the reality of the working conditions. So it's about, what is the story that's being told? What are the assumptions that are being made? What is the story that needs to be told? And how do we create space and push back on the dominant narrative? So I think we'll close now, because I want to honor the schedule. Yeah. And if you have any questions, of course, feel free to message me. I'm always happy to talk about narrative, as most of my friends know. It's something I think is really, really, really important in, you know, understanding why violence persists. So thank you all so much for being here and for listening. And I'm super excited for the rest of the day.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Hilal. That was very illuminating. And it just also, you know, helping us to exercise our muscles of being able to really see through the propaganda. And not only that, identifying is a really, you know, that's the first step. And that can be one of the biggest steps, but then how to go about actively countering it and combating it, and, you know, telling the truth and being honest. So thank you for that. It's really important.